Sitting inside of the dining room, eating his breakfast, Han thought about how time had flown by since his first day in Academic City. A little over a month had passed by since he had ventured into the nest in the ruins. Walking around the city still seemed like something out of a dream. It still felt like he was living inside of an anime, where the main character was sent off to a fantasy world and became the hero to defeat the Demon Lord. The nice thing was that he didn't need to go through tedious grinding in order to face off against a powerful force. There were elements commonly seen in this genre, like monsters and beastmen. Though he did miss Earth, relating to the normalcy of it compared to a fantasy world, Han imagined that it wouldn't be long until he could accept it. Compared to an anime or light novel, Han knew that he wasn't stuck in the current world. If there came a time when he became bored, he could always change to a different world or reality. Classes have proceeded similarly to what he experienced on Earth. They learned various aspects of this world and developed stronger connections with one another. Many assignments required him to work in a group, helping to create bonds between him and the other classmates. Though he admits that he became close to many of the students, most of the nobles were still standoffish. They tended to stick to their own kind instead of mingling with commoners. Han started to notice that there was some friction between the noble class and the commoner class. When he first started at the academy, Han was impressed by how everyone tried to interact with one another, but this seemed to have changed. Talking with Celestra would have helped him understand what was happening, considering she was a noble, but she was currently off developing her skills as an adventurer. A few times, he had the opportunity to meet with her and talk about how she was doing. Though her rank didn't increase, her skills appeared to be more polished. The way she walked demonstrated an improvement in her movements, making her look like a skilled fighter. There was no longer an air of arrogance she had back when they were in that monster nest. In addition to Helania, Queen, and Brittany, both jungle sisters, Anaklis and Rasia, were staying in the city. Initially, their presence was somewhat surprising to the residents, even with the other beast people, but after several weeks passed, people seemed to become more accustomed towards them. With their beauty, the sisters attracted a lot of attention, especially from nobles. Han was asked numerous times whether he would be willing to sell his beast women slaves. He was surprised about this, but after talking with some of the more reasonable nobles, he learned that most beastmen working as a servant were slaves. Beastmen societies were built on the survival of the fittest paradigm, so families that were unable to survive would sell themselves into slavery. There were also underground markets that sold illegal slaves, who were captured in raids. This led to many thinking that Han owned the Jungle Sisters. Concerning some of the more persistent nobles, Han had to deal with them in a more direct manner. Once word spread around, Han didn't need to concern himself with arrogant nobles. It did bother him that many of the beastmen that worked inside the city were slaves, but considering that it wasn't his business to cast judgment, he left it alone. "Master, how is your breakfast?" Brittany asked him in a cheerful voice. Jerked from his thoughts, he looked at her with a slight glaze to his eyes as he tried to understand what she was asking. "The food is fine, Brittany. I was just thinking about how quickly time seemed to have flown by," he commented, putting some scrambled eggs into his mouth. On top of the eggs was a drizzle of salsa over them, which added a nice acidity to it. "I couldn't agree more, Master. It feels like just yesterday when you created us and took us out into the world," Helania responded in agreement. Finishing up his breakfast, Han stood up and headed out the door. Behind him, Anaklis followed him, Each of his creations took turns going with him whenever he headed out. To accommodate the Jungle Sisters, he had to make some alterations to the house he was staying in. To not make people wonder about his abilities, he had hired contractors to increase parts of the house. Instead of using the rooms inside of the living space, Han created a small dimension for each of them based on preferences. Anaclus's room was a mini jungle, while Arasia's was a dark cave. The rooms did an excellent job at mimicking their floor in the stronghold. As Anaculus slithered out of the house, he placed his hand on her hair and enjoyed the beautiful feel of it. Sometimes in the sun, Anaculus' hair seemed to sparkle. Anaculus blushed as Han played with her hair. "Master, your fingers feel nice." She was happy that they were able to spend more time together. "You are stunning," Han said to her, admiring how he was able to create such an amazing beast woman. He never understood how the humans in this world treated beast people as horrible as they did, considering how wonderful they were. Her tail slowly wrapped around him, pulling Han towards Anaculus, who gave him a hug. Han could feel her smooth skin on his face as she buried it between her mounds. "You are so kind to all of us, Master. As I spend time inside the city, I understand how lucky we are to have you. Many other beast people are treated with contempt by humans, and though calling you a human is like comparing the distance between the heavens and the earth, it still brings us feelings of love the way you are so gentle and kind." Her voice was bubbling with emotions as she held Han in her arms. Feeling her tail wrapped around him made him understand her feelings. Though she was his creations, it wouldn't be surprising that she would compare herself with other beast people. As time passed, Han noticed that his creations were becoming slightly independent of him, though they still were fiercely loyal to him. Looking up into her face, Han placed a hand on her cheek and said, "You are precious to me, so of course I would treasure you. I do not think of you as just my creations, but also a part of me. If you were not by my side, I do not know how I would handle it. Just because I formed you, I do not see any of you as being expendable." Her jade eyes began to moisten as tears slowly flowed down her flawless face. Lowering her head, she pressed her lips against his. It felt like time was halted as they conveyed their emotions to one another.
If you're real, I wanna put you in that spotlight, looking at you all night, put you in that spotlight. Oh, you make me feel right, wanna look at you all night, put you in that spotlight. Oh, you know